Hello. Okay. Hello. I hope that this is working. I realized that I didn't say I was going to be live on my channels, unfortunately, until today. But as you see, I'm doing this every week. I hope that it's really cool. Coucou, ça va bien? Coucou. Hello, everyone. Hi, good to see you all joining here. Fantastic. Nice to see you joining. So thank you for coming and for joining me. Hello. Wave. Can I wave back if I press this? Yes, I can. Oh, good. I've just realized that if I press the wave button on Instagram, I can wave back. That's pretty cool. Fantastic. Thank you so much. Hallo. Viele Grüße aus Deutschland. Ja, danke. Viele Grüße aus Skopje. Hi from Southern California. Hi, nice to see you. Hello. The really cool thing on Instagram is that you can just click the wave button. I've just learned a new thing. Isn't that amazing? Okay, so really cool. Top popular ones. Bubble Duolingo. Oh, my favorite apps. I've got to say, right at the moment, I'm using Link is probably my go-to app at the moment. And I'm enjoying Link particularly because not just for me, but also it's working really well for my daughter. She's actually also using it too, and she's coming up for she's going to be 13. My word, very soon, which is unbelievable to think that she's going to be 13, but she's going to be 13, and she's learning lots of languages, and so she has spoken obviously English, French, Macedonian, German, and Spanish from a very young age, and she continues to study those, and also she will be. She's studying Dutch at the moment as well. She took on Dutch, which she started on Link, and she basically has they have stories, and they have the audio that goes with them. So you basically go through the audio, you go through the story, and then you answer questions, and you understand what it is, and you answer the questions that are there to check your understanding. And I think it works pretty well. I mean, I've been using it as well to revise some languages recently. Hey, Marcos from Brazil, nice to see you. Nice to see you on YouTube. Fantastic. And yeah, so I've been using that a lot recently, especially for looking at some other things. Hey, Diane, zdravo, kako si? Dobro si. So yeah, I've been using that a lot. So in answer to your question about apps, that's the one I've been using mostly recently. Of course, I have used other apps too, and I think that, yeah, I mean, so I've used Memrise, and obviously I like Memrise, and I like I like the UTalk app, for example. I've played with a bit as well recently, and it's quite nice for sort of some basic words to get the basic words in, and to hear them pronounced. Memrise do some great things with sort of you've got homemade courses that people can go through with sort of vocab and sentences and stuff, sentences and things. But also they have their own courses, and I find actually following Memrise on Instagram particularly really interesting, because they put some cool videos, and they're quite funny and quite informative and entertaining, so I really like them. I've got a question here. Thoughts on Moses McCormick? Moses McCormick is a lovely person. I think what he does is he inspires a lot of people to learn languages, and anyone who does that, in my mind, is definitely a good person. So I like Moses. He's a friend of mine, and so anyone who does that, to my mind, is good. I guess, is that what you meant? I hope that's what you meant. But yeah, that's what I think of him. In terms of opinions on people generally, yeah, I mean, I'm quite happy. I mean, people don't have to agree with what I say or I do. People don't always have to even like some of the things I do or say. But I think that if we all pull in the same direction and we all like languages, then I think that it's a positive thing, right? It's not like we're going out there doing something bad or negative. I think that anything that people do that's positive and can have a positive influence on some people in society, even not a lot of society, then I think it's a good thing. And I think learning languages is always a good thing to do. It doesn't matter what you do, how much of it you do. I think it's good. Hello from Switzerland. Hi, Daniel. Nice to see you. I'm seeing a lot of people coming here. Nice to see you. Okay. Tips on learning Chinese, Valentino. I will see if I can give you some tips on that in a second as well. And do you learn languages with podcasts as well? So Daniel, yeah, podcasts can be really useful. So the Link app that I was talking about before, they use podcasts as well in their app. So one of the things my daughter's doing is she goes through the French app, because clearly we speak French at home, so she speaks French. But what I find is that clearly what we talk about at home and what she needs to know in terms of vocabulary and expanding her vocabulary, she gets from podcasts where they discuss different topics, and they talk about the environment, they talk about sort of travel, they talk about all sorts of things that sort of just broaden her horizons from home, especially now in the pandemic where we can't really travel. Just makes things a lot easier. The stories and narrations, which app was that with stories and narrations? I'll just write it in here now. It's called Link, lingq.com. You can check out their website, and they've got an app as well in the App Store. So there we go. There's the Link one for you. I've just popped it in there on Facebook and on YouTube. I'll just write it in here too in case you want to check it out. Excuse me while I do this. If I get a question somewhere, I'll do my best to answer in all places. Harry Tremere, hello, nice to see you on. Oh, fantastic. Okay, live stream with everybody's favorite language. Oh my word, I'm not even going to read that out, Marlon. I feel almost embarrassed. Thank you very much, Marlon. You're very kind. I've just made my text a bit bigger on YouTube now so that I can read your comments more easily. I was finding it a little bit small, unfortunately. Zdravo, kako si? Dobar smo, Fads. Se vore tuka i evo samo čekam malce granicite da se otvorat podobro, pa da ne morame da odime po karantin tamo vo drugite državi. Ama treba malce vreme ušte. See how we get on. So I was just saying that, yeah, we're waiting for, so the borders are open here for me to be able to travel a little bit, but unfortunately, it means that I do need to go into quarantine if I go into any of the neighboring countries, except for Serbia, I think, and I think Kosovo. So I think I can go there without going into it, but otherwise, yeah, I have to go into quarantine. I don't really fancy going into quarantine for 2 weeks, and then 2 weeks on the way back for 4 weeks. Be a little bit crazy, unfortunately. So I love this wave thing's fantastic. I can't believe I have only just discovered it, but am I getting to wave to people lots and lots of times here? Okay. Let me see, are there any other questions I had here? There was one about Chinese. So learning Chinese, I actually find that with languages like Chinese and Russian and languages that we see as being complicated and complex and difficult to learn, I think that the very best thing to do is to just dive in and just start and just appreciate that it's going to take time to be able to start saying things that feel meaningful. I'm definitely feeling it now. I mean, this is, I think, is it week 3 of me learning? And I'm really enjoying it. I'm actually, yesterday I didn't quite finish off the dialogue for the end of week 3, which is lesson 21. So I'm still going through this dialogue that is for translation, and then I'll be on to starting week 4, which is lesson 22. And look, I'm still not speaking Persian. It takes time. This is not something that's going to happen overnight. And I think with Chinese and with Russian, it's going to be the same thing. I mean, you've got to basically spend time picking up vocabulary, learning things that you really want to say, and you need to know how to say for what you do in your normal life. So I think with Chinese particularly, worrying about the tones too much in the beginning can really mess with your mind. And I'd say start focusing on things that you want to say and how you say them. So finding out, how you say the things that are relevant to you. Like, my name is, I'm from, I live here, I've got a brother, I've got a sister, I've got my parents live in wherever they live, I live in this place, I studied at university. Move on from there so that you can talk more and more about yourself, and then expand out and start talking about things that are relevant to you. And once you can do all of that basic stuff in a language, I find that you really get a lot more confidence with moving forward with learning new things. And then it gets to the really interesting sort of this intermediate level where it feels like it goes on and on and on and on and on forever because there are so many topics to cover. I mean, I'm going through this myself in a number of languages, this kind of never-ending intermediate level, which is this sort of, you can have a conversation for an hour or so with people, no problem, talking about what's going on, happening in your day, all that kind of stuff. You're missing words and you're starting to fill in those words and starting to fix grammar points and be more precise in your grammar. And that seems to take a long, long time to get right. And I'm going through that process right now with Albanian, where my Albanian is kind of this, I guess, B1-ish type level, where I can speak in Albanian with Albanian speakers, no problem. I can watch TV in Albanian and understand the news. I can understand even a lot of the dialogues that go on, and it's like series that I see, Turkish series that are translated into Albanian, or I can at least read. When I hear the Turkish, I can read the Albanian and understand it. Not everything, obviously, but I understand a lot. And what I'm finding is that it just, honestly, it takes time, because I'm getting better. It feels like I'm getting better. I can feel the difference, and it just takes time from the intermediate to get to the intermediate. What do I think about Duolingo? I've got a question here. So other questions about apps then. Duolingo, I am a fan of anything that promotes language learning and anything that does something good. For me personally, I don't use Duolingo. I've played with Duolingo, but I don't use it. I personally feel a bit frustrated with some of the sentences that it throws at me, because it's nothing I will ever use in a real situation. So talking about what Nowl did, or talking about, I don't know what the kind of, you see these very strange memes about Duolingo, you know, the strange things that they say. And people post them and they have a bit of a laugh about them. So for that reason, I don't use it, because I feel that my time is better used going through a book that's kind of maybe uses things that I'm more likely to use. At the same time, I will never speak badly about anything that promotes something positive and good like language learning. So Duolingo has really popularized language learning, and it's done it in a way that many other people have not been able to. And so even if somebody speaks a little bit of a language because they've gone through Duolingo and they've got a better appreciation for a new culture, a new country, a new language, I'm really, really pleased about that. So I will always be a fan, and I think it definitely appeals to people. You know, maybe I'm not the audience for Duolingo as well. I mean, you know, I studied languages at university. I work with languages. Somebody's asked what I do for a living. I work as a languages director for a social media management agency called The Social Element, and it's a job. I'm kind of in this situation where I'm using languages professionally. I've been studying them on my own for many years, as well as at university level, and so for me, Duolingo isn't really aimed at somebody like me. I think it's more aimed at if you're new to languages and you want a nice soft entry into it, and I think it really fills that gap nicely. So yeah, I'm not gonna even though it doesn't work for me, I will definitely always say that I'd rather somebody use that and learn a language than not use anything and don't learn anything. You know, I think that's the most important thing for me. It's a pleasure to see you here and manage to many languages to teach your daughter. Okay, how many languages do I teach my daughter? And roughly the routine for speaking. And lastly, what games do you play with her? Thank you, Legend. Well, thank you very much. It's very sweet of you. Thank you. So I have had quite a few questions about raising multilingual children. So maybe it feels like a good topic to take on. I appreciate there are going to be a lot of questions, and I can see a lot of questions coming up. So hi, Peggy. Yes, I'm gonna come back to the children. Peggy has asked a question on YouTube, and Peggy was asking me a question last time, and YouTube gave up the ghost on me. Of course, Peggy, you're one of my true fans on YouTube, and I really appreciate you coming and supporting me. So please ask the question. Please pay attention to YouTube. Yes, I can. I am paying attention to you. I'm listening to you right now. So please do ask me your question. I am very, very happy to answer. I'll come back if you're not ready with a question yet, Peggy. But feel free to pop it in there, and I will do my best. Okay. I don't see the question yet. Okay, I just see you want to ask me a question. So let me just go back to there were a few questions that I saw in here that I want to make sure that I'm not ignoring people. And please, if you notice that I'm not able to reply straight away, then I appreciate that it is difficult for me to kind of to get every single question, because it takes time to answer the first one, and then a lot of other questions come in. So yes, is it true that for English speakers learning Swedish or Norwegian is kind of easy? So I would say definitely learning languages in the same family can be easier, because you've got a lot of words for free. The grammar works in a similar way, because that's why they're in the same language group. So English, Norwegian, Swedish are all in the Germanic language family group. So they, yes, it is easier in that way. My routine of studying, wow, okay, that would probably be a lot. And I promise to go back to the languages with my daughter, which I will do very soon. I was just waiting for Peggy to be able to ask her question. And Peggy, I'm standing by waiting for your question here. So if you've got your question, let me know. Otherwise, I will have to just move on to the next one. So here we go, Peggy. What would be the best way to dramatically improve your Spanish? Okay, what tenses would you learn first? So Peggy, it makes sense to me to learn in Spanish, in Latin languages, learn your present tense first, because you're going to be talking about present tense things first of all, and then start talking about the past tense. Or future tense in Spanish is pretty easy, because it's just, you can just do it in the beginning with voy a hacer. So it's quite easy. Voy a hacer, voy a hablar, voy a escribir, voy a salir. So you can use voy a just to say the future tense in Spanish. I will, I will, I will, I will. And then when you get a little bit later, you can start playing with the other future tense in Spanish, which isn't particularly complicated either. You just add certain endings to the infinitive, which make things a lot easier. The thing then to get into, I think, is probably after the present tense, start looking at the past tenses. So you've got the imperfect and the perfect tenses in Spanish, and getting to understand the difference between the two. In Spanish, like in many Latin languages, you've basically got an idea of where we have in English. I went, I did, I made, all these kinds of things. They use this perfect tense. So hice no sé qué, no sé cuánto, escribí una carta, I wrote a letter. But if you want to say something that happened while something else was happening, or something that you did all the time habitually, something that you used to do, then you would use the imperfect tense. So mientras escribía una carta, mi madre entró en la cama. Whilst I was writing a letter, my mum walked into the room, or entered into the room. And so these differences are good to learn, but I'd say those are the first three tenses you should focus on, and particularly pay attention to the verbs that are irregular, because they take a bit more time getting through. Right, so back to the question I had before about raising my daughter with many languages. Now, it's possibly Spanish. I don't have a tutor. Is it possible to get fluency in Spanish without a tutor? Yes, it is, Peggy. You can. People can reach fluency, I think. Well, depending on what you mean by fluency, but yeah, people can get to a high level without a tutor. It is good to have somebody to practice with, because obviously you need to be able to practice the language to be able to, with another person, to sort of practice your ability. So I think without a tutor, yes. Without a language partner and just doing it as a theoretical thing, it's more challenging, because you know, how do you check where you're fluent? Unless you've got somebody to speak to and you feel comfortable on a range of topics, it's quite difficult. You could get fluent in, for example, what they call a polymath, I think it's called, where you actually just read in the language fluently, and you can read almost everything. And I know people who do that. They just become fluent for the written word, which also works. Depends on what you want to do. Okay, where am I from? Where am I from? I'm from the United Kingdom originally. I'm from the UK, but I grew up around Chester. So my English is standard Northern English. So there we go. Your videos. Thank you very much, Tom. I appreciate your kind words. Thank you. Do you study in the morning or at night? I study both, actually. I study in the morning and in the evening, before and after work. And I also, I listen to things a lot. It's difficult to describe my study routine simply because I am constantly thinking about languages and using languages in my work. So now I did promise I'm going to go through what I'm doing with my daughter first, because that was a question that came earlier and I keep coming back to it and I haven't finished it yet. So I will do. I'm just not going to be looking at any new questions for now because I'm getting distracted. So when my daughter was born, she's nearly 13 years old. So when she was born, my wife speaks Macedonian as a first language. I speak English as a first language. So obviously they were a given that we would want her to speak both of those languages. I also wanted to teach her French because I spoke it as a child from school, really, but I was very young when I started it. And I found that French really helped me understand English a lot better. And it gave me a lot of help with understanding English literature particularly. So for me, it was really important that she were able to speak French. So I spoke to her in French and English from birth. And then when she got to 16 months old, she was doing well with all three languages and was able to say things in all three. And then we added in Spanish and German. And how we did that, so basically with the original languages, that was just what we spoke at home, the three languages. I would speak to her in French, I would speak to her in English, I would repeat both languages alternately and sing in both languages alternately and play games in both languages alternately at home. And then as a family, we speak Macedonian. My wife and I always speak Macedonian. We've never really spoken English together. So that's how we did it with the home languages. And of course, they just developed. But by 18 months, she was saying a few things, but the conversation with an 18-month-old isn't that advanced. So clearly you can direct the conversation and just keep going backwards and forwards. The important thing was play. And then when we added the other two languages in, because she was doing so well with the first three, we couldn't decide between German and Spanish. So we tried both to see if she had a preference. And all I did for an hour a day, I took her to an area in the city and played with her for an hour a day in those languages for an hour each. And we'd play ball, we'd play with teddies, we'd play games, we'd play all sorts of things, just make up games and sing songs and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's kind of what I did. And as she's got older, I've kind of not made her read or write in the languages. I didn't make her do anything like that while she was growing up. I wanted it to be fun and something that we just did. And so she just grew up speaking the 5 languages. And then when she started going to school, obviously you have to learn something, but I'm a great believer in you learn something in a language. And if you speak the other language, you can make a version of what you're learning in the other language, and you can improve it as you get older. For example, for me, I mean, I learned Macedonian when I think I was 27 when I first started learning it, and it's never been a problem for me communicating with people on a number of topics. I mean, I can talk about pretty much anything and everything. Anything I can speak about in English, I can speak about in Macedonian now, and I learned it at 27 without knowing a word. So if I can do that, and there's nothing particularly special about me, I'm sure she can do that, and anyone else can do that as well. I've met people who have they've learnt Chinese at the age of 30, and then they became amazing Chinese, and they even found it easier to say things sometimes in Chinese than they did in English. That was actually an American lady. Was it American or British? One or the other, an English-speaking lady that I met years ago in the Czech Republic, and yeah, she always felt that she was Chinese inside, and it's something awoke in her when she learned it. So yeah, that was kind of how I did it. And then when she went to school, she had to start writing in some of the languages too. But she had an easier time of it than her friends, of course, because she already spoke the languages. I can see some of my Iranian friends here. So salam to all my Iranian friends. And Türkçe biliyorum, evet. Türkçe'de konuşuyorum. Burada Makedonya'da merhaba, Türkiye'den merhaba, nasılsınız, iyi misiniz? Ben burada Türkçe her gün şimdi konuşamam çünkü de virüsle burada evdeyim ama genellikle burada Türkçe'de konuşabilirim çünkü e, Üsküp'te Türkçe üçüncü dildir ve bana göre çok güzel bir dildir. Ve Makedonca'da çok Türk kelime var ve bu yüzden çok bana göre çok ilginç bir dildir çünkü ben şimdi artık e, daha iyi Makedonca anlıyorum. Evet. Sorry about that, everybody. I was just explaining why I like Turkish and why I speak Turkish. Basically, in Skopje, where I am at the moment, it's probably the third language that's spoken most commonly on the streets after Macedonian and Albanian, and also both Macedonian and Albanian have borrowed quite heavily from Turkish after the Ottoman Empire. There are an awful lot of words that have come into the languages from Turkish, and so it's actually quite a voyage of discovery studying a language like Turkish when you already speak Macedonian Albanian, because you start seeing all of these words. And then now learning Persian. Somebody asked me about my Persian Asimil. I think it was on Facebook. I saw the question, and how I'm getting on with it. Well, I do a lesson a day. I'm not going crazy with it because I simply don't have so much time to do really intensive study. But what I'm finding is that there are a number of the Turkish words that I know in Macedonian, Albanian, and Turkish that I'm seeing also in that are actually either from Persian or Arabic words that are shared in Persian too. So it's been a lot of fun doing this. I learned something very interesting the other day about the days of the week in Persian, and how actually the days of the week in Turkish are actually Persian, which is for me amazing to figure that out. I hadn't realized that at all, just speaking Turkish. I heard Çarşamba and Perşembe, and I never realized that they were Persian words. So Çarşamba would be fourth day, and then Perşembe would be punch. Perşembe, Şembe would be from Shabbat, which is Shabe in day in Persian, and therefore you've got these cool words that sort of you find out about. You find Albanian challenging because of the yes, this silence, because it's confusing pronunciation. Yeah, it can be. Some speakers will pronounce it sometimes, but yeah, Albanian is, I would say, probably one of the more exotic of the European languages to learn, I think, because there doesn't seem to be very much on it, and not many people seem to learn it, strangely. But I find Albanian actually strangely really quite rewarding, and we have a lot of TV in Albanian here, so I listen to it pretty much every day. Wie geht's, mir geht's gut, danke, Karam. Vielen Dank. Okay, let me see if we've got any more questions that have come through while I've been talking away for a long time. So do excuse me if I look through. Zdravo, pozdrav iz Bosne. Zdravo, pozdrav iz Bosne, pozdrav iz Skuplje. Kako si? Dobro, sve u redu. Kako je tamo u Bosni? A nisam bio, ne znam koliko vremena sad u Bosni. Sam živo 4 mjeseca tamo, sam radio, ali sad nisam vratio ne znam koliko, dugo vremena, ali puno mi se sviđalo tamo da živjeti. Za mene je to stvarno, u Sarajevu sam bio, da znaš. Ali sam posjetio i drugi gradove tamo u Bosni. Tamo sam bio, kad smo bili, sad smo bili u Tuzli. Smo bili u Tuzli. To je stvarno lep grad. Tuz je turski za sol, solta. Sol je iz Tuzle, zato zanimljivo, to je interesantno. Okay, sorry about that. I got into a little bit of a diversion. I saw Bosnia mentioned, hello from Bosnia, and I used to live in Bosnia, and I really like that part of the Balkans. And I went to a town that's there, it's called Tuzla in the north, and it's actually a Turkish word. So Tuzla, it literally means with salt in Turkish, and that is because in Tuzla is where a lot of the salt from Yugoslavia, they got the salt from Tuzla. So Tuzla in former Yugoslav countries is famous for salt, and it's a Bosnian town. And that is a Turkish name for the town that means with salt. There we go. Turkish also helps you understand place names as well, and funny things in the colloquial language, which I find really cool. Let me see if there are any more questions. Exactly, Turkish, Turkish, Turkish. I love Turkish. Tips for learning Turkish. Go to the Yunus Emre Institute. I loved it. That's what I did. I studied it at the Yunus Emre Institute. They have an online version, actually. It's Yunus Emre. I'll see if I can write it down. Oh, it's a second. Yunus Emre is here. Yunus Emre. If you look, it's basically a famous Turk, and they name the institutions after him. It's kind of like you've got Goethe for German or Cervantes for Spanish. They use Yunus Emre for Turkish, and you can actually do courses up there. I did up to B1, and that was a lot of fun. It's Shanbe. Thank you for the correction there. So Shanbe is the Persian word. Shanbe. Okay. Okay, let me see. There's a few other questions here on YouTube as well. I'm just going to have a quick look. Olga, heb je Nederlandstalige leven geschreven? Mijn Nederlands geschreven? Nee, dat heb ik niet. Olga, nee, dat heb ik niet. Helaas. Ik heb niet zoveel in het Nederlands gelezen eigenlijk. Ja, gewoon televisie een beetje van de ondertiteling in het Nederlands. Maar ik heb de taal eigenlijk voor... om te lezen heb ik niet zo... in de taal heb ik niet zoveel gelezen. Om te zeggen dat ik een lievelings Nederlandtalige schrijver heb of zoiets. Nee. Heb jij zo wat? Of lees je dan vaak in het Nederlands? Jag har bott i Sverige 2 år och jag förstår mycket när jag pratar. Ja, okej. Så man drar förbi. Okay. Ja, men det är fint om du kan använda dina kunskaper där i Sverige så hjälper det jättemycket för att lära mer. Jag tror att du kan lära sig mycket mer om du kan prata med folk där. Så för mig var det så med alla de där språken som jag har studerat, och så jag använder dem nästan varje dag. För mitt jobb eller för andra saker, för mitt liv på internet eller på nätet eller någonting, så det går ganska bra. Men man behöver också ha så podcasts eller titta lite grann tv eller någonting för att bara för att inte använda de där orden som man kan. Man måste också använda ett språk som är lite grann annorlunda, som man inte hörs varje dag, eller hur? Så det är jätteviktigt för mig. Jag försöker göra det med det nya språket som studerar nu för tiden. Men svenskan till exempel, jag pratar aldrig. Jag använder det aldrig som jag pratar nu. Jag bara läser det, eller jag hör det. Jag hör det på nätterna. Okay. Olga had some more questions. Let me see. Need to learn German, but recently seem a bit unmotivated to learn. Intention keeps you towards Swedish. How do you do lack of motivation? Stephanie, the best thing for a lack of motivation is honestly to set yourself realistic goals. If your motivation drops, often it's because you're being hard on yourself, and you're setting yourself up for a big sort of a really crazy goal. I know I have this very often, and I meet many people who learn languages who set themselves up with these goals of, I'm going to learn German. Focus first of all on learning how to introduce yourself in German, how to say certain, how to go to the shops and order the food that you like in German, how to talk about your family in German, how to talk about the weather in German, and then it gives you specific goals. And then set yourself like smart goals. So you've got to make sure that they're also things that you can look back on and say, okay, I've done that. How long did it take me to do it? So set yourself maybe 2 weeks. You get by the end of the 2 weeks, check back, put reminders in your phone, in your calendar of when you're going to study, so that it's not, I'm going to do this every other day, or I'm going to do this every day, or no, it doesn't work like that, unfortunately. It has to be, you schedule something really concrete that you keep yourself to. I find that without doing that, it's very, very, very difficult to stay motivated. And remember, you're going to forget a lot of stuff. That's fine. I forget way more than I sometimes think I should when I'm in those moments. But then I remind myself that I'm a human being and I'm going to forget lots more things than I know. So I kind of just make peace with that fact and move on. And as I said in the beginning, because we were talking about these applications and different people, I'm a big fan of everything we do is a step forward in a positive direction. I think that is the key thing. So trying to be kind to yourself is really important. Being kind is very important. So I would say if you can do that, then half the battle's won. And set yourself a goal of, if you don't feel like doing it, let's say you're having one of those just awful days, just revise what you did last time. It would just make you ready for the next time you can study and move forward with your studies. It's better than doing nothing. If you've got the audio, just listen to the audio. So things like that help. I find that just brightens my day a little bit, and it gets me back into the thought process and sort of motivated to study more later. Ma première question, est-ce que tu parles mieux, est-ce que tu peux imiter le québécois? Bah, j'en sais rien. Ok. Bah, en fait, j'ai fait ça plusieurs fois. Je ne sais pas si c'est intéressant pour vous, mais je vais essayer encore une fois. D'accord. Le québécois, en fait, bah, j'ai appris le québécois un peu. J'ai étudié un peu la langue comme il parle au Canada, parce que je voulais aller au Canada pour parler à Montréal. J'étais à Montréal pour la Langue Fest. Puis je me suis dit que j'aimerais bien parler un peu comme les Québécois. Et tu sais-tu que vraiment, avec la grammaire et le vocabulaire qu'on utilise au Québec, c'est vraiment très différent de ce qu'on dit en France. Et pour moi, c'est pas vraiment ma façon de parler comme ça, naturelle, quoi. Donc, je fais mon mieux parler comme un Québécois. Et j'essaie vraiment d'imiter un peu parce que j'adore l'accent, j'adore la langue, j'adore comme il parle, le québécois. Mais pour moi, le français, naturel pour moi, c'est le français européen. Donc, j'espère que ça t'a plu un peu. Mais moi, j'adore le québécois. J'ai un grand respect pour le québécois, j'adore ça. Your first degree was in Spanish, French, Italian, and Portuguese. Was that a bachelor's? So my first degree was a bachelor's degree, a BA, and I did a degree in combined languages. It was in French, Spanish, Italian, Portuguese. Portuguese was a subsidiary language, which I guess for anyone in the US out there means like a minor language. So my main languages were those three. I also did 2 years of the Scandinavian Studies degree, which included Swedish and Old Icelandic. And then afterwards, I did an advanced diploma in Czech studies at Charles University. And I studied at a number of other universities as well, but for kind of credits, not for a particular degree. So yeah, I've done quite a few university stints with languages. And I kind of got to the point, I started working on research in Hispanic studies. And I just got to a point where I actually just liked too many languages, really. And I just felt that it wasn't right for me at that point in my life to continue going down a research path, which is what I was on. Originally, I was going to be doing, I'd started on kind of an MPhil, which would have gone on to a master's, then MPhil doctorate kind of program. And I was looking into, in the beginning, I started off by looking into the usage of past tense verb forms in Spain, particularly in Galicia, and how they use differently in comparison to the rest of Spain. Because in case you're interested, in Galicia, they often don't say things like has visto or has dicho algo, que has dicho. They'll just say que dijiste, which is quite strange in the rest of Spain, because in the rest of Spain, there's a clearer distinction between the two tenses. And so I was starting to look into that that was kind of what I was discussing with my tutor, and how I would then use that as a point of reference for what would be a bigger research piece. But I kind of started it, and I just thought, actually I want to use my languages, and I want to study languages outside the family. And I thought that at that point I wasn't ready to just commit to one language family into the depth that you need to go to, and the concentration that you need to have to go into research. My hat's off to anyone who does research or is in academia, because I've got nothing but admiration for people who do that. So maybe one day I will go back to academia. Who knows? It would be nice to think that I could do that in later life, and hopefully maybe give something back through those channels too. I would quite enjoy that kind of thing. I don't know. I have played with the idea of actually going into actually looking into some of the Slavic languages and maybe going back and doing a master's or something in what, like a Slavic language. The University of Nottingham, one of my friends had that option where she spoke what was called then Serbo-Croat. She had lived in what was Yugoslavia at the time, and she went back after she did my degree, the same degree as I did at university. She went and did a master's degree in Serbo-Croat, as it was called, at the University of Nottingham. And I've always thought back to her as an example, because there aren't many foreigners that learn Macedonian to the level that I've learnt it. And I have thought that it would be potentially an interesting thing to look at. As somebody who studied quite a few of the Balkan languages as well, the interrelationships between the languages, and some of the dialects, I would quite like to get into the dialects of Macedonian, and also talk about the language continuum that runs from Serbia right through into Bulgaria, because I find it absolutely fascinating, and I love the etymology. So there we go. I kind of went into a little bit of a talk about my academic dreams and aspirations. Thank you for the question, Olga. It was a really interesting question. No one's asked me that actually before. En laatste conferentie, YouTube Nederlands. Oké. Reclame radio, heb geleerd, ook een boeken en een Nederlands gelezen. Oké, nee, dat is goed, dat heb ik al gezegd. Dus even kijken. If I were 15 years old with a passion for languages, Spanish, would you continue? Of course, absolutely. If you could potentially get a job with native speakers, but also, Peggy, you can use your language in different ways online as well. There are so many ways to interact with languages and with different communities and people. So definitely, absolutely. I'm just going to go through and see if I can see any other questions here on Facebook as well, because I'm conscious that I've not looked at Facebook for a little bit. Let me see. How many times do you use the same material to remember? So Isaac, that's a good question. So for studying a language, for example, how long it takes to actually get it, there's a lot of repetition involved. It takes time to remember languages and words, and to remember things, really have to practice quite a lot. So I find that it's not so easy to just think that, it's plug and play. You hear it once and then that's it. If there are people out there that do that, then I'm very, very pleased for them, because it must be extremely interesting to just look at a language and know it. Unfortunately, I'm not one of those people. I do need to study, and I do need time to practice. I think partly because seeing something, understanding it, reading it is one thing, but then using it correctly in speech, I have to make many, many mistakes before I get it right. And my poor Maori teacher, we meet twice a week to have my Maori lesson, and every single time you can guarantee that I'm gonna make the same mistake that I've made every single week again. And I say to him, he's really, really positive, he's really nice, his name's Alec. Huge shout out to Alec, he's a lovely, lovely person. And he is so patient with me, and I make the same mistakes over and over again. And I say, I apologize, because it's a very British thing to do, to apologize for everything. And he says, you know what, you're conscious of it, but I'm not. It's normal, it's fine. And I'm like, I know it is. I still feel like I need to apologize because, you know, it's his time and I respect his time very, very much. I also really enjoy the conversation around the language as well, because we talk about a lot of things to do with Maori culture, the situation in New Zealand, what it's like being a Maori in New Zealand. We talk about current political situation, past political situation, situations, history. We talk about a number of different things that I just really, really value. So yeah, I make lots of mistakes. Just ask my Maori teacher. Have I made, okay, in indigenous languages, I guess that answers your question there, Victor. Yes, so I'm learning. Okay, fantastic. You're going to do a Maori one soon. So yes, Victor, it's great that you're doing these books. I think you sent me something, didn't you? And I probably didn't get back because I get so many messages, unfortunately. Sometimes messages do kind of escape me. I'll open them, I'll reply a little bit, and then I open them again. And then, so if you ever write to me and I don't get back, it's because so I just unfortunately get quite a lot. So please feel free to write again and remind me. Olga did that to me, and Olga, I really appreciate you doing it. Olga is writing on YouTube at the moment, and asked me some nice questions. So yeah, please do. And it's never personal if I don't reply straight away. It's normally because I'm just simply overloaded with questions and work and other things, because I work full time in my normal day job, and also I have a family, of course, as well. And then I organise the Polyglot conference, and so it does get a little bit much. Where if I reply to every single thing straight away, I would never get anything else done, unfortunately. And I also like to study languages every now and again. Believe it or not, it's strange, eh? But yeah, please do. I mean, you know, never give up on me. I definitely do ask again if there's a question. Some questions though, if you're asking me who I am and where I'm from, I'm possibly not going to prioritize those questions, just because just Google my name. So if you're writing to me saying and also it helped me learn English, I'm not an English teacher and I'm not a teacher of languages generally. It's not my job. I'm happy to try and answer those questions if I can. I always say there are many places online where you can Google for language teachers. If you want to find out who I am, then unfortunately, I mean, I've got open public profiles that you can read. On the Polyglot Conference website, there's a whole paragraph just about who I am and where I'm from. So feel free to do that if you want to know who I am. How have I afforded all the university courses? Very good question. They were all free. I didn't have to afford anything. In Europe, many universities are free. So in the UK, when I studied at university, it's a little bit of a long time ago now, university was free. So I did my degree for free of charge, and so I didn't pay anything. And then the other courses, actually the one in Czech Republic, it cost maybe like €200, maybe, I can't remember at the time. It was very cheap. That was probably one of the only ones. The courses I did in Sweden and in the Netherlands, I did some university courses, and they were very cheap as well. I went to the Volksuniversiteit, which is kind of like a night school that they have in the Netherlands. And then at university in Sweden, where I studied, and the university in Iceland. University of Iceland course was subsidized, so it wasn't that expensive. And the University of Sweden was free because I was, at that time, a European Union citizen. Now I am just a Brit. So yeah, I was a European Union citizen, so I was entitled to free tuition in Sweden, and I also through Swedish. So I studied through Swedish for a number of those courses. Okay, I'm getting the same question about me knowing Turkish. Have a look back if you haven't heard me speak Turkish. Feel free to look again and see me speaking Turkish or hear me speaking Turkish. It's nice to see all these Turkish people. Yeah, I'd like to. There are so many languages to learn. And honestly, it's really crazy. Which books do I recommend for Turkish? Well, I only did one book, so I used Yeni Hitit, which is the book that I used for Turkish, and that was just the one. But I would use the ones that they use at the Yunus Emre Institute. They tend to go through them pretty well. They're only in Turkish. Asimil has a book for Turkish. So does Teach Yourself. So Colloquial. So you could start with some of those maybe. They're easy to find, and you can get electronic versions as well. Z Prahy doufám, že ty si líbilo Česko. Ano, samozřejmě. Moc mi líbilo. To bylo hezké, no, nádherné tam v Čechách. Takže, no, díky moc. Ahoj. So you can read, but you can't understand. I'm trying to see if there's any more questions. How's my Persian going? It's going okay, slowly but surely. It'll get there. It will get there. Okay. I'm seeing a lot of questions here. Let me see. There are lots of very different questions. I'm trying to work out ones that I can actually answer for you now. Have you learned many Italian hand gestures, Richard? Hand gestures and things, actually, yeah. I mean, obviously, we have like these kinds of things and this kind of stuff for Italian hand gestures that we picked up at university. We did some hand gestures, actually, at university with our Italian teachers who did the conversation classes with us. So they thought it was fun to teach us some of the hand gestures. Yeah, I know some. They're not all naturally occurring in my Italian, I've got to be honest, but they're a lot of fun, and I like how the variations, especially as somebody who studied sign language, it's particularly interesting to sort of see hand gestures and how they are with the different hand gestures and sign languages can be quite different. Which name of this YouTube channel? So someone's asking me for a name of a YouTube channel. YouTube channel is just Richard Simcott. So it's just my name. If you can't see it. Okay. See if there are any other questions on YouTube as well. Let's see if I can answer any other questions. If you have another burning question on YouTube, feel free to write it again. I will do my best. I can see a lot of nice conversations going on there, so I don't want to disrupt too much, but I will go back and just check on Facebook. Here we've got a few questions. Es ist eine große Ehre. Ja, vielen Dank, das ist ganz nett von dir. Vielen Dank. Ja, okay. Ja, danke schön. Ja, ich wünsche dir alles Gute. Ne? Je suis d'accord, très bien, merci. Creo además eres de los pocos políglotas que hablan bien el español. Muchas gracias, ¿eh? Lo agradezco mucho, que me gusta mucho el español. Muchas gracias, Vera, me gusta. A ver. El català també, sí. Sí, parlo català perquè vaig aprendre català a la Universitat Carolina de Praga. Doncs, sí, parlo, però no és una llengua que parlo com, per exemple, el castellà. Però parlo, sí, per comprendre la llengua, per parlar amb la gent. Sí, no tinc problemes, sí, molts grans, sí. Doncs, sí, no sé, a nivell de català, no sé. Pot ser, no sé, B1, B2, no sé. Cool, Vera. A ver. Guitarista Brian May. Okay, wow. Okay. Hello, Richard, watching you live. Hello, Anya. Hallo, du Liebe. Hallo. From the Migration Office in Puebla. I love it. Anya, you're so true. Du bist eine treue Seele. Das bist du, Anya. Du bist meine Liebe, echt. Vielen Dank. Das ist so nett von dir. Du bist immer so lieb. The Anya Spilke is the one who's working with me on the Polyglot Conference. She's got a wonderful language school called the Lower Languages in Cholula. It's absolutely beautiful. The school and the people who work at the school are so sweet. So they even do things online, actually. So if you fancy it, yeah, go for it. Am I active on Twitter? Yes, I am active on Twitter. I'm on Twitter pretty much every day. So feel free to join me on Twitter. It's Speaking Fluently without the G, because it's too many letters to have speaking fluently. It's speaking without the G, Speaking Fluently. Also, the Polyglot Conference has a Twitter account, and the Polyglot Conference also has, obviously, Facebook and YouTube and Instagram and everything. Just not got the hang of TikTok quite yet. I don't know if I'm TikTok ready. My daughter, I set one up. I looked at TikTok and I started looking into it. My daughter was absolutely depressed at how I looked on TikTok. So she said, "Oh, Dad, please don't." ¿Qué opinas del árabe? Me gusta mucho. No lo hablo, pero me gusta. Dialogues you learned, you have repeatedly. So yeah, Christopher, absolutely, I write everything down. So that's one thing I do. So for example, with Christopher's asking me if I write things down. So here's my Persian. So I started writing the last thing down that I'm doing. If anyone can read it. Sorry, any Persian speakers, any Iranians out there, if you think that my handwriting's any good, I hope it's legible and understandable to people reading it. So that's my Persian. This is my little book. Yeah. Look at my book. You see, I'm embracing my masculinity and femininity. I'm definitely an all-rounded polyglot. I don't feel embarrassed to use my daughter's notebook for my notes. I'm very, very happy and proud to have a nice cat with a pink thing on it. Cheerful. It's positive. There we go. And then there's my notes for Persian. So yeah, I do. I write everything down. I really like writing things down because it helps my muscle memory to remember how to write things. I can visualize things better when I write things down, and helps me for spelling later as well, so I can visualize the words. So yeah, I do that, and then also I go through. So at the moment, I've not gone back through anything yet in the Persian, because so far I'm following the grammar that's been explained, and I'm following. I've not picked up all of the words, all the vocabulary yet. That'll take time, but it's being repeated actually, which is quite good. Especially when I get to these lessons like now, they have in Asimil they'll have like a week of lessons, and you do one lesson a day, and then you do a revision lesson. So I'm on a revision lesson at the moment for the third week, which is lesson 21. So after that, I will start with lesson 22, and I will go through to lesson 28 when I'll have my fourth week revision. And in this, normally there are 99 lessons. There are 9. I think there are 99, but here in Persian, I don't know if there are actually. No, there are 86 lessons in Persian. Even though it's very thick, there are 86 lessons. So yeah, so I guess I'm quarter of the way through Persian, Asimil Persian, which is quite interesting. And I'm also listening to some of the Link in Persian as well. It's a little bit difficult to get it all in Link because it's a story, and I haven't met the present tense properly. I did a little bit of the present tense with Link, but I've not. In Asimil, we've not got to present tense yet. We're only on the past tense. So I will say things like to go, like good. I now know in Persian that, for example, raft is he went or she went. So uraft, but it's also like man raftan, tu rafti. Tu rafti is you went. And I know that it would be choma raftid. Is that right? For this? Hello, Nyla. Oh, sweetie. So yes, I basically, so with this, I've been learning this past tense in Persian, and we've not got to the present tense yet, because with Arabic and Persian and a number of actually Semitic languages generally, the tendency is that you learn the past tense before you learn the present tense, and so yeah, at the moment that's where I am. I'm learning the past tense, and I've done a fair bit, so I can say a few things in this. It's working well, and moving forward with those. So I will revise it again as I go through, and I will be listening more and more to the audio as well. So yes. Also, so oh, your Persian accent is totally well. Okay, as a new learner, oh, thank you very much. My Persian accent is working. Fantastic. I've not been working so much on my accent yet. I've done some, obviously, for pronunciation, it's important, but I've not really worked much on my accent. So it's nice to see that it's understandable what I'm saying. I really appreciate that. Yeah. So gustaram. Yeah, I'm very happy. I like that. So yeah, I've only got a minute left, unfortunately, on this live. I've really enjoyed talking to you all. Thank you so much for coming and joining me to talk about our favorite topic of languages. I know that we all love this, and if I didn't get to your question, I am very sorry, and I will do my best to get to it next time. And feel free to write to me. You can connect with me on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. And of course, I'm always very happy to see you. See you soon.